Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing a review of Jennifer Chan is Not Alone by Keller, who is a Newbery Medal Award winner for her previous book, When You Trap a Tiger, which I absolutely loved. And this new book is a 2022 release, contemporary middle grade, that has some slight sci-fi elements and some really good themes. I was so stunned by how powerful this book is, so I just wanted to tell you all about it and why I loved it so much. So first, let me tell you what this book is about. We follow Mallory, who is a middle school kid that has quite a bit of anxiety and wants more than anything to fit in and be liked, especially by her cool friends. But one day, her new neighbor, Jennifer Chan, who is a very strange person that believes in aliens, goes missing, and she feels like she has to try to find out what happened. So now let me tell you what I thought was so amazing about this book, starting with bullying. This is a pretty heavy topic, but it's also really relevant for middle schoolers, and this book delves into it. Definitely content warnings for that, but I think that the topic is handled so well in here. There's actually an amazing afterword where Keller talks about why she wrote this book, about how with her previous books, she often was going to middle schools, talking to the kids, and they'd ask about her own middle school experience where she was very severely bullied. And she realized that she'd never really worked through that. And so this book is, in a sense, her working through her own experiences. But what's really interesting is that this book is not told from Jennifer Chan's perspective, the girl who was bullied. Instead, it's told from Mallory's perspective. And Mallory is actually part of a friend group of mean girls. So this is actually told from a bully's perspective, which was a really fascinating choice. Keller in the afterword talks about how she actually ended up reaching out to a bunch of her old bullies to try to process what had happened to her and understand where they were coming from and what was going on. And that really helped her kind of realize what is going on in the lives of people who bully, and also what sorts of growth they can go through to become better people. So this explores the concept of bullying in a really fascinating way, and I think it's just so powerful watching the way that Mallory grows throughout the course of the story, as well as the way that the book discusses what bullying does to other people. Another aspect I loved about this book is how it handled identity. So our main character, Mallory, is somebody who struggles with her identity. She is someone who just wants to fit in. She doesn't want to stick out in any way. She doesn't want anybody to judge her. She just wants to be totally normal. She erases those parts of herself that she feels might stick out, things like the fact that she's Asian American. She tries to just ignore that and hide that. Things like her own preferences or past friends that weren't cool, any of that, she tries to just erase. And she's somebody who very much doesn't have a strong sense of internal identity. She strongly believes that your identity is determined by the way other people look at you and judge you. And that contrasts really nicely with Jennifer Chan, who is this new girl who is totally sure of herself. She knows herself. She knows who she is. She likes herself. She isn't at all ashamed of the fact that she is Asian American. She isn't ashamed of a lot of the things about her that make her different, her belief in aliens or the fact that she does martial arts or any of these things. And so that contrast between Mallory and Jennifer Chan is done really well when talking about identity. I also really loved the way that this book dealt with the theme of growing up. When you're dealing with middle school kids, they are in such a moment of flux. You know, they're leaving childhood behind and entering young adulthood, trying to figure out who they are, who they want to be. And I loved the way that this book explored that, really asking some very core questions of who is it that you want to be? How do your actions define you? What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with? And how does that affect the way that you view the world? How do you treat people? And if you make mistakes in how you treat people, how do you acknowledge that to yourself, to others? How do you apologize? How do you forgive? How do you move on? So there's all of these excellent questions of how to grow up and become a better person that are explored in the story. And lastly, I really liked the way that this book used some light sci-fi elements, this interest and search for alien life and tied that into the experiences of the characters and really their identity and growing up and all of these questions that they're being faced with. So there's all of this interspersing of the regular chapters with journal entries from Jennifer Chan about her knowledge of, her research on alien life. She is so into aliens, just obsessive in that way that, you know, kids can be. And she has these journals where she writes down everything that she learns about what aliens could be, about how we might contact them. And those journal entries are very, very well done in terms of the way that they relate to the chapters before or after them, talking about her search for alien life and how that relates to just the normal everyday experience of kids. And so there's so much about you know, that being openness to something that you don't understand and how to be open to people that you don't understand. Her belief that aliens probably are altruistic because, you know, if they manage to get far enough to do space travel, then probably they've overcome stuff like war. And her belief that people are at heart good, that kind of faith in other people. There's so much of the sci-fi elements that ties in really beautifully with the story, and I loved that. I think that it was really, really well done, lots of good layers of exploration of topics, and just the sciencey bits were quite fun. Overall, I think that Jennifer Chan is Not Alone is an incredibly moving middle grade story that I think is, one, wonderful to read as an adult because it is just so well written, but also I think that this is going to be excellent for middle school kids who are dealing with a lot of these issues. Bullying really is like a big issue for middle schoolers, both for the kids who are being bullied as well as for those who maybe are doing some things that they're not sure they're okay with, but don't really fully understand that they're bullying other people. And I think that this book walks a very beautiful line of exploring that topic from the bully's perspective without ever justifying or excusing the bullying behavior, but rather focusing on how we can recognize it and kind of the impact that it can have. It's such a great book and I absolutely loved it. If you guys have read this book, I'd love to hear from you, or if you're interested, or if you've read any of the other books by Keller, anything at all, I'd just love to hear from you. Leave me a comment down below.